Oh, gracious. Yeah, I just had a time where I lost the ability to get into the live stream, but I'm here. Yay. Okay, so before we go forward, I'm going to put some things in the chat. I don't know how to pin them, but I'm going to put them in there because they're relevant to what we're going to talk about today. So these are two YouTube videos. I'm going to put the title in here. Okay, so that's the first one. That's the video. This is your homework, by the way. And I'm trying to see why my stand is off. It seems like it's off, but that's okay. Here's the second one. Okay, so let me see if I can fix this. Okay, I'm trying to back it up some. There we go, getting back. Okay, so today I selected as the topic the Federal Reserve. So we're still in the Agenda 2025. This is the Heritage Foundation 900-page document that tells what the Heritage Foundation and their associates want the next Republican president to do, regardless of, whether he's involved in it right now or not. This is what they want him to do. So this is what they're going to approach whoever with. Now, it was a very interesting read. So to let you know what's going on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the preamble like I've done for the last few days. Then I'm going to go into what they're saying and how they manipulate and then move into what they want to say. So I'm going to pick it up so I can be closer to the camera. So here, the Federal Reserve, the author of this one, there's only one person on here, and his name is Paul Winfrey. You all can look him up. I really don't know who he is, but this is a very interesting section of this Agenda 2025. Money is the essential unit of measure for the voluntary exchanges that constitute the market economy. Stable money allows people to work freely, helps businesses grow, facilitates investment, supports savings for retirement, and ultimately provides for economic growth. The federal government has long made policy regarding the nation's money on behalf of the people through their elected representatives in Congress. The Federal Reserve is not a government agency. So whatever he's talking about, he might be talking about the taxes. Over time, however, Congress has delegated that responsibility first to the Department of the Treasury and now to the quasi-public Federal Reserve System. Well, that part is true. The architects of the Federal Reserve believe that a quasi-public clearinghouse acting as lender of last resort would reduce financial instability and end severe recessions. That's not what they were about. That's what they told people that they were about. However, the Great Depression of the 1930s was needlessly prolonged in part because of the Federal Reserve's inept management of the money supply. That part's true. This is a political system that has demonstrated a history of bailing out private firms and banks when they engage in excess speculation. This is what we see. So the Federal Reserve holds up all these banksters and these corporations, basically the corporatocracy, when they do some stuff and they mess up, then it's back on us, the people. And I have to change the pages now. Government can abuse this authority for its own advantage by printing money to finance its operations. That's what they do. They print money out of thin air. That's when we say, oh, they're printing money out of thin air again, and they're making the dollar worth less. So eggs are $6 a carton for a dozen eggs. Congress gave the Federal Reserve greater authority over banks after the stock market crash of 1929. During the stagflation of the 1970s, Congress expanded the Federal Reserve's mandate to include maximum employment, stable prices, and moderate long-term investment rates. In the wake of the 2008 global financial crisis, the Federal Reserve's banking and finance regulatory authorities were broadened even further. Together, these expansions have created significant risk associated with the too big to fail financial institutions and have facilitated government debt creation. Collectively, such developments have eroded the Federal Reserve's economic neutrality. They are not neutral. They have never been neutral back when they were started. And again, the homework that you have that's over in the chat, take that information down. Those are 2 videos on YouTube that you want to study to see who the Federal Reserve really is. And even back before the Federal Reserve was created, back before this country was created. Now, these are the recommendations of the Heritage Foundation for the Federal Reserve. There's something that they call a dual mandate. So they want to eliminate the dual mandate. The Federal Reserve was originally created to furnish an elastic currency and rediscount commercial paper so that the supply of credit would increase along with the demand for money and bank credit. It was created to pillage the people. Okay. In the 1970s, the Federal Reserve's mission, listen closely, was amended to maintain macroeconomic stability following the abandonment of the gold standard. This included making the Federal Reserve responsible for maintaining full employment, stable prices, and long-term interest rates. Now, why would the Federal Reserve be in charge of that? Why wouldn't the federal government and the local government be in charge of that if they were really in charge? So these are the things that are going on. They want to, this is what these people want to, they want to limit the Federal Reserve's lender of first resort function. So it's almost like the bailout function. To protect banks that overlend during easy money episodes, the Federal Reserve was assigned a lender of last resort function. This amounts to a standing bailout offer on and encourage banks and non-bank financial institutions to engage in reckless lending or even speculation that both exacerbates the boom and bust cycle and can lead to financial crises such as those in 1992 and 2008. And then they get the bailouts. This function should be limited, and that's what they're saying. The next one is they want to wind down the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. So this is interesting. I got to pick up another page. Until the 2008 crisis, the Federal Reserve never held more than $1 trillion in assets, both largely to influence monetary policy. Since then, the assets have exploded. Since the 2008 situation, their assets have exploded, and the Federal Reserve now owns nearly $9 trillion, mainly federal debt, which is $5.5 trillion, and mortgage-backed securities. Here we go again, which is $2.6 trillion. There's currently no government oversight of the types of assets that the Federal Reserve purchases. So what these people are saying is they want to rein that in. Yeah, I know what you all are thinking. Well, we're going to get to that. The next one, it says housing costs were driven to historic highs by the Federal Reserve's purchase of mortgage securities. Together, these policies that we've been talking about subsidizes the government debt, starving businesses borrowing while rewarding those who buy homes and certain corporations at the expense of the wider public, which is what they do. The Federal Reserve balance sheet purchases should be limited by Congress, and the Federal Reserve's existing balance sheet should be wound down as quickly as is prudent to levels similar to what existed historically before the 2008 financial crisis. That's what they want to do also. They want to limit future balance sheet expansion. In other words, don't take on any more. Get rid of the balance sheet that you have, whittle it down, and don't get any more. So I'm going to skip all of that reading, get to the juicy stuff. Okay. A primary driver of high costs during the past 3 years has been the Federal Reserve's purchase of mortgage-backed securities. Since March 2020, the Federal Reserve has driven down mortgage interest rates and fueled a rise in housing costs by purchasing $1.3 trillion of MBSs from Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and Ginnie Mae. They want the Federal Reserve to stop paying interest on excess reserves. That's another thing they want to do. Under this policy, also started during the 2008 financial crisis. A lot of stuff was going on there that nobody knew about. They were taking a big grab. Outside of the fact that they bailed out all those banks, they took a big grab back then. So under this policy that was started in 2008, the Federal Reserve effectively prints money and then borrows it back from banks rather than those banks lending the money to the public. This amounts to a transfer to Wall Street at the expense of the American public and has driven such excess reserves to $3.1 trillion, up 70-fold since 2007. The Federal Reserve should immediately end this practice and either sell off its balance sheet or simply stop paying interest so the banks instead can lend money. Congress should bring back the pre-2008 system founded on open market operations. This minimizes the Federal Reserve's power. Then it goes on to another one, monetary rule reforms. Okay, this is what they're recommending. Listen to this. While the above recommendations would reduce the Federal Reserve manipulation and subsidies, none would limit the inflationary and the recessionary cycles caused by the Federal Reserve. So that wouldn't stop the inflation and the deflation. For that, major reform of the Federal Reserve's core activity of manipulating interest rates and money is needed. A core problem with the government control of money and monetary policy is exposure to two unavoidable political pressures: pressure to print money to subsidize government deficits and pressure to print money to boost the economy artificially until the next election. They really said this because both of these manipulations will always exist with self-interested politicians. The only permanent remedy is to take the monetary steering wheel out of the Federal Reserve's hands and return it to the people. This could be done by abolishing the federal role in money altogether, allowing the use of commodity money, and embracing a strict monetary policy rule. They are talking about abolishing the Fed. This paper, this Agenda 2025 wants to abolish the Fed. Now, later on in the paperwork, they talk about, it's going to be difficult and the politicians won't want it, but this paper goes into deep detail, not only about why the Fed should be abolished, which is all the stuff that I just read, but it goes into some great detail about the solution, what could be done. In other words, free banking. Before I get to what they call a solution, then I'm going to go to the chat. Love and peace, everybody. Good evening. Latin stimulus. A goad, a pointed stick for driving cattle. Stimulus is a cattle stick, a cattle prod. That's what it is. And you all know mortgage is debt until death. So more MRT, that's death. So a mortgage is a debt until death. So those Latin words, when my children were in the private school they were in, they had to take Latin before they took any other language. That was very key. It helped their language a lot. They had to take, they wanted to take Spanish, but they had to take Latin before they took Spanish. But those Latin words really tell you what's going on. Okay, Steve Jacobson, Wake Up America, opened my eyes. Thanks, Dr. Jackson, for doing what you do. Good discussion. Why are you focusing on Project 2025? I'm focusing on Project 2025 at the moment because the Heritage Foundation does have pool. It's not only the Heritage Foundation, but there are a lot of other of these conservative organizations that have teamed up on this paper. And when the next Republican president comes into office, they're going to, regardless of whether he's signed off on this or not, which I know that Donald Trump has not signed off on this, they're going to push this agenda. We need to know what these people are thinking. We need to know what the people with power are thinking, what they're doing, and what they're trying to put in place. There are other things that I can talk about, and I will, but this one right now is the one that is up. We're getting ready to have an election. If he wins, then they're going to try to push this on us, and we need to know what they're pushing. So that's why I'm focusing on it right now. Let's see what else is here. Clara something, I don't know what that is. The farce reserve. Yeah, there's no reserve. It's not federal and it's not a reserve. Okay. Laura's going to vote for Trump, and that's fine. Okay, so I want to talk just a little bit more about what they propose as a solution when the Federal Reserve is gone. And I think this is great. I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. Oh, I don't want to forget to say get the likes up, but if you would do that, I would appreciate it. So free banking. This is what they call free banking to replace the Federal Reserve. In free banking, neither interest rates nor the supply of money is controlled by the government. Wow. The Federal Reserve is effectively abolished, and the Department of Treasury largely limits itself to handling the government's money. Regions of the US actually had a similar system known as the Suffolk system from 1824 until the 1850s, and it minimized both inflation and economic disruption while allowing lenders to flourish. Sounds good to me. Under free banking, banks typically issue liabilities, for example, checking accounts, denominated in dollars and backed by a valuable commodity. In the 19th century, this backing was commonly gold coins. Sounds good to me. Each dollar, for example, was defined as about 1/20th of an ounce of gold, redeemable on demand at the issuing bank. So that sounds good. Now we're going to skip a little bit and go to their next solution. The next one, commodity-backed money. So first we talked about free banking. Then they have like a page and a half on free banking. It sounds good. Then the next one is called commodity-backed money. For most of U.S. history, the dollar was defined in terms of both gold and silver. Yeah. The problem was that when the legal price differed from the market price, the artificially undervalued currency would disappear from circulation. In other words, people were hoarding the gold, which is true. Restoring a gold standard retains some appeal among monetary reforms who do not wish to go so far as abolish the Federal Reserve. We want to abolish the Federal Reserve. In economic effect, commodity backing the dollar differs from free banking in that the government, via the Federal Reserve, maintains both regulatory and bailout functions. However, manipulation of money and credit is limited because new dollars are not costless to the federal government. They must be backed by some hard asset like gold. Compared to free banking, then, the benefits of commodity backed money and reduced but transition the what I'm sorry, I messed that one up. The benefits of commodity backed money and are reduced, but the transition and disruptions are smaller. So what they're saying is it won't have as much benefit as free banking, but it'll be easier to transition to. And the last one that I'm going to read is, one concern raised against commodity backing was there's not enough gold in the federal government for all the dollars in existence. This is solved by making sure that the initial peg on gold is correct. Also, in reality, a very small number of users trade for gold as long as they believe that the government will stick to the price pegged. The mere fact that the people would exchange dollars for gold is what acts as the enforcer. After all, if one is confident that the dollar will still be worth 1/2000 of an ounce of gold a year, it's much easier to walk about with paper dollars and use credit cards than to mail tiny $80 coins. Now, that is true. It's hard to lug around gold and silver. But the way we've been messed over with the fiat money, I'm not sure whether people would really want those paper dollars. So if you had the choice of having the gold or you had the paper dollars and the government guaranteed that they were worth 1/2000 of an ounce of gold, would you, number one, carry the dollar, or would you, number two, carry the gold? Put a one in the chat if you would carry the dollars, if you feel like if you had confidence that they were going to be backed, and put a two in the chat if you would keep your gold and trade in your gold. So I'm going to go back to the chat and see what we have. Yes, if you are enjoying this content, hit the like button. I try not to be really these topics are heavy, and I try not to get too deep into it. And that's one thing that I don't like to do. I know this is finances and all, like, you don't want to put people to sleep, but we got to get down to the nitty gritty. There are solutions to our problems with this fiat money, with these dollars that they're just printing like there's no tomorrow. There's solutions here. Some of the solutions are in this paper, but that's not something that people in power would want, because they won't be able to snap their finger and have a whole bunch of money printed anymore. It says they is not Trump, right? Please acknowledge this is not. No, I said in the first and the second stream that I did on the Agenda 2020 that Donald Trump has denounced this. He doesn't endorse this. This is the Heritage Foundation and a whole bunch of other people that are associated with the Heritage Foundation. Be that as it may, they're still going to approach him with this stuff. So yes, we do need to know. So yes, you would. The ones would keep. They would keep trading with the credit cards and the dollars, and the twos would say, no, I'm going to keep my gold. Keep the gold, buy and hold. And I think that with gold and silver as precious metals, a lot of people are seeing that China and India and Russia and all those are buying up gold like crazy. So the price of gold is, fluctuating around $2,000 right now. When I started buying gold, it was $313 an ounce. So I know that the value of gold goes up. It's hard to keep a whole bunch of gold. And then, what are you going to do if like when the economy crashes and an ounce of gold goes up to $5,000? If you got ounces of gold, those little, round ounces, you got the Cougar Ranch, you got the Canadian maple leafs, you got all kinds. If that thing is worth $5,000, what are you going to do if you have them? You're not going to be able to go to the grocery store with it. What are they going to give you as change? There are smaller denominations of gold. There are the 1/10. Then you got the francs. And then I have some grams also. So those are available. So two. So some of you would keep your gold. Thank you, Miss Sherry, for reading Project 2025. You are being unbiased. I'm not, I'm not for anybody. I'm for the people. I'm not for candidates or any of that. I told you I don't vote. Um, I know that these higher elites, regardless of what party they're in, they don't have our best interest at heart. So we got to help each other. We got to keep each other informed. So I appreciate you listening, Black Family United. I really appreciate that. You can't buy thick skin. You can't buy thick skin. There was this the government school system has taught our children over the last several decades to be weak little whiners and entitled, and that's a problem. So at home, I'm praying that the parents are trying to reverse that. If their children are in the government schools, everybody can't afford to go to private school. Everybody can't afford to send their children to there, and everybody can't afford to stay home and homeschool. But if you get involved and you show your face at the school, and they'll make sure that they don't see you, so they're gonna take action. Things were different when I was younger in the government school. We did a lot of things different. The worst thing that you could get in trouble for was having chewing gum, and things have come a long way since then. Will not trade my gold. I don't blame you, Adam Cobb. No, no, I wouldn't either. Gold at this point is a hedge against inflation, and if you have gold when things get bad and you need to use the gold, it'll be worth a lot, and then you can get assets if you already have assets, or you can use it to do things that are going to help you survive. I don't want to get all the way into that, but okay, I'll keep my gold. And when I bought it, I paid the same as you, under $400. That's exactly right. Those of us who are enlightened a long time ago, but it's still not too late. I have people asking me about it. Where can I buy some gold? I don't have a lot of money. I get my gold from Volunteer Precious Metals. They have decent prices, and they don't have advertising, so they don't have a huge advertising cost. It's a small family, and their office is in a barn in Tennessee. It's just a nice little family. Their father was one of the first people that stood up against the IRS. So they're a good family. So let's see what else is down here. Yeah. So basically, if you don't have any more questions, I'm gonna go. It's Friday night. I'm kind of tired. I had my granddaughter today. She's in a micro school, which is a private Christian school, and they don't have class on Fridays in this new school that she's in. So I had her today, and I'm not gonna say she wore me out, but my focus has been different all day today. So I next week, well, since I have the challenge coming up on the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, I'm going to be diligently putting that together. I still said that I was going to go over the Department of Housing and the Department of Health. So next week, I want to get those two in. I will let you know in the community area what days that will be. Usually Tuesdays and Thursdays are better for me, but my schedule sometimes is all over the place because things are happening. So I'll get it up in the morning so that you'll know when I'm going to come back on and talk about next the housing and urban development, and then health, HUD, and then the health department. What are your thoughts on JFK executive order? I don't remember what that is. I remember hearing of it. So when I don't know what it is, so you have to like explain what that is. I remember JFK came up with, and I had one actually, $5 US notes, not Federal Reserve notes, United States notes. And I'm not sure whether this is what you're talking about, but he came up with the $5 United States notes. There were some that came out. He went away from us in Dallas, and then as soon as Lyndon Baines Johnson got into office, one of the very first things he did was rescind those $5 US notes. I think that when I was raided by the IRS back in 2004, that's when I think my $5 US note disappeared. Anyway, I hope that answered that question. Gold standard. Yeah, we need to be on the gold standard. You know, I don't know how many of you put a one in the chat if you're from Texas, but Texas virtually has their own Fort Knox, and from what I heard, like their teachers' pension funds are backed by gold and stuff like that. So I heard that a while ago, and I thought that was cool. Yes, yes. Somebody says that why he was taken away, and yeah, when you start dealing with them, I think about this. These people have a system that they put in place, and they've been building on it, and they've been stoking the fires of their system. And anybody that comes against their system in any kind of way, there are going to be consequences. Now, why would a homeschooling mother that has had no other criminal anything get a 4-year sentence when there have been people that have done awful things and other people? When I was going through my thing, there's this person, I think he's a rapper, his name is Ti. He was in trouble, and then he was like, they put him on house arrest. Then he got caught with, some firearms or whatever, and then they put him on community service and they gave me a 4-year sentence. You can rap, and you can, say bad things about women and say bad things about the police and all that, but when you start teaching people about what's going on with their money, then that's the real danger to these people. So yeah, that's the answer to your question. Thank you. Thank you. May all beings experience an abundance of peace and love. That's what we need. But they don't want that. The perpetual war is what they want, because perpetual war brings them the resources. All of them are in this together. They're in bed together, y'all. All of them. I have money he printed. You know, okay. Okay. Hold on to it tight. Okay, so there's a book that someone in the chat is recommending about uh, JFK and his situation. Okay, Muammar Gaddafi was about to put Africa. Two things I understand he was doing. I have a book that he wrote. Two things that I understand he was doing. Number one, he was trying to unify the countries of Africa. There are a lot of countries in Africa. He was in the process of saying, this is what he's saying. I almost said one of those words that they don't allow. The taking of Africa's resources needs to stop. And I know now Burkina Faso and all those are talking about it, but back then Gaddafi was talking about it. Let's get together, let's form an alliance with all of us and have everybody have equal say, and also let's get on the gold standard. Yeah. Yeah. The gold dinar, that could have been it. Yeah, he was somebody said that he was trading tangibles without the US dollar. Now the BRICS are doing that. Now the BRICS are too powerful for the other people to take them out. They've gotten together and did it. They're not a one or two person show, because again, Gaddafi wasn't the only one. There were other people over the years that there are little movies out there that show you when people rose up to try to protect their own country, or in Gaddafi's and I'm not lauding him as some kind of a savior or anything like that. I'm just saying the facts. This is what he was trying to do. I know he did some horrible things, and a lot of people do, but when you try to protect your area and stop people from pillaging it, that's a better word. So the pillaging of Africa is what he was trying to stop. Yes. That's okay that the spelling of his name. You did well. This was never meant to be won. Yes, this war was never meant. None of them are, because that's how the military and industrial complex. Dwight D. Eisenhower talked about it, and he hinted around to the fact that this was going to be an issue. So the military industrial complex is an issue. So anyway, so the Federal Reserve, the Heritage Foundation paper basically talks about ending the Fed and going back to free money. So that would be wonderful. It can be done. It's like I've heard people say it's impossible. It's impossible. It's possible. Anything's possible. And I think that a lot of things would be better than what we have now, because every time they go on a printing spree, our dollars go down. And then what's the little thing? You all know about shrinkflation, right? Shrinkflation is when, okay, so my grandmother has the absolute best recipe for banana pudding in the world. She taught me how to make it. She had 7 children and she didn't write down recipes. So I had to sit there and watch her. So when I make banana puddings for Christmas and for Thanksgiving, I make 7 to 9 of them, because she just, so you have to put all these natural ingredients in there, and you have to stand at the stove and stir the pudding for an hour so it can get thick, right? Always use Nilla wafers. So one time I used some other ones, and when I poured the pudding on there, the cookies disintegrated. So Nilla wafers was standing up. Lately, there's shrinkflation. I can tell because this is something I've been doing for years. Not only are the boxes like almost a dollar 50 more, but the Nilla wafers have shrunk. When you buy a pack of cookies, it might have had 30 cookies in there. Now it has 24. This is a progression. And there's something that I'm going to go over on another day that's related to this. This is a plan, and I've gotten somebody that sent me the written out plan and what they're planning and what they're doing. So basically it's like we're these frogs and we're in this warm water, and the water feels nice, and we're doing like this, and they're heating it up so gradually that by the time we start boiling, we won't even be able to get out. That's what's happening, people. Let's see if there's something else in there. William Jennings Bryant was a big proponent of sound silver. Now that name sounds familiar. Was he the person that went over from the United States to China or Japan because he had some ideas that he wanted to relay, and people here didn't want to listen? I'm not sure whether that's the same guy. Okay, shankflation, higher prices, lower quality, smaller portions. Exactly. Yes. Anyway, I am going to run, guys, because I need to eat something. And tomorrow I have a big day. I'm going to go and do some volunteer work, putting some clothes together for a clothes closet, because things are getting really, really tough, and people are going to need clothes. Their monies are tight, and, their children's clothes and adults' clothes and all that, they need to be put together in sizes and hangers and all that. And then that's, what I'm going to do tomorrow morning. I'll let you guys know when I'm going to be back on, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.